Etruscan art was the form of figurative art produced by the Etruscan civilization in central Italy between the 9th and 2nd centuries BC. Particularly strong in this tradition were figurative sculpture in terracotta and cast bronze, wall painting and metalworking. History. The origins of the Etruscans, and consequently of their artistic style, dates back to the people who inhabited or were expelled from Asia Minor during the Bronze Age and Iron Age. Due to the proximity and/or commercial contact to Etruria, other ancient cultures influenced Etruscan art, such as Greece, Phoenicia, Egypt, Assyria and the Middle East. The apparent simple character in the Hellenistic era conceals an innovative and unique style whose pinnacle coincided with the Greek Archaic period. The Romans would later come to absorb the Etruscan culture into theirs, but would also be greatly influenced by them and their art. Timeline: 800–650 BC, Oriental or Orientalizing period. Due to cultural exchanges amongst Mediterranean civilizations at this time, especially with ancient Greece, a figurative tradition appeared in Etruscan art that was based on Greek models. 650–500 BC, Archaic period, Ionic and Corinthian influences. Due to more and more exchanges and due to the structure of Etruscan society, new artistic techniques emerged. Painting became highly developed in this period, as did painted sculpture in terracotta and vase painting. 500–300 BC, Classical period, still marked by Greek influence. Less and less art produced due to internal and external political and military crises, with the exception of the bronzes from Bolchi. 300–100 BC, late phase, absorbed into Roman culture, art and religion. Etruscan art was often religious in character and, hence, strongly connected to the requirements of Etruscan religion. The Etruscan afterlife was negative, in contrast to the positive view in ancient Egypt where it was but a continuation of earthly life, or the confident relations with the gods as in ancient Greece. The Etruscan gods were hostile and tended to bring misfortune, and so Etruscan religion was centered on interpreting their will and accepting or satisfying it. On the other hand, most remains of Etruscan funerary art have been found in excavations of cemeteries, meaning that what we see of Etruscan art is primarily dominated by depictions of religion and in particular the funerary cult. Whether or not that is a true reflection of Etruscan art as a whole. Etruscan sculpture. The Etruscans were very accomplished sculptors, though the renowned Capitoline Wolf is now suggested to have been manufactured in the 13th century AD, surviving examples in terracotta and bronze, a testimony to this. Some of the more famous examples include the orator or Metial by its name, bronze found in Umbria. The Apollo of Veri, from the temple at Portonaccio, painted terracotta attributed to Vulca. The bronze Chimera of Arezzo, now at the National Archaeological Museum of Florence. The sarcophagus of the spouses, painted terracotta from Cerveteri. The Apollo of Veri is a good example of the mastery with which Etruscan artists produced these large art pieces. He was made, along with others, to adorn a temple at Portonaccio's roofline, although his style is reminiscent of the Greek Kroisos Kouros. The notion of having statues on the top of the roof is entirely an Etruscan derivation. Etruscan funerary art. The Etruscans excelled in portraying humans. Throughout their history they used two sets of burial practices: cremation and inhumation. Cinerary urns and sarcophagi have been found together in the same tomb, showing that throughout generations both forms were used at the same time. In the 7th century they started depicting human heads on canopic urns, and when they were started burying their dead in the late 6th century they did so in terracotta sarcophagi. These sarcophagi were decorated with an image of the deceased reclining on the lid alone or sometimes with a spouse. The Etruscans invented the custom of placing figures on the lid, which later influenced the Romans to do the same. These urns were widely popular in Etruria, and from there, the style made its way to Chiusi. After studying the urns further, it was revealed that they were most likely made from molds, in large quantities. This was discovered due to their almost exact resemblance to one another. They have been identified as far back as the 3rd century BC, and are technically still used to this day. Examples of these pieces can be found today in museums all around the world. The Hellenistic period funerary urns were generally made in 2 pieces. The top lid usually depicted a banqueting man or woman, and the container part was either decorated in relief in the front only or, on more elaborate stone pieces, carved on its sides. During this period, the terracotta urns were being mass-produced using molds in northern Etruria. Often the scenes decorated in relief on the front of the urn were depicting generic, Greek-influenced scenes. The production of these urns did not require skilled artists, and so what we are left with is often mediocre, unprofessional art, made en masse. However, the color choices on the urns offer great evidence as to when it was created, because the color popularities changed over time due to availability, or even just pure aesthetic. Etruscan cinerary urn, mid-2nd century BC. Terracotta, Worcester Art Museum. MMA Etruscan funerary urn. Etruscan canopic urn from Chiusi. Funerary urn. Louvre. Sarcophagus of Cerveteri, couple 520 BCE. Etruscan painting. The best preserved Etruscan paintings that have survived to modern times are mostly wall frescoes from graves, and mainly from Tarquinia. These are the most important example of pre-Roman figurative art in Italy known to scholars. The frescoes are created by applying paint on top of fresh plaster, so that when the plaster dries the painting becomes a part of the plaster, and consequently an integral part of the wall. Colors were created from ground-up stones and minerals of different colors and were then mixed to the paint. Fine brushes were made of animal hair. From the mid-4th century BC, chiaroscuro began to be used to portray depth and volume. Sometimes scenes of everyday life are portrayed, but more often traditional mythological scenes. The concept of proportion does not appear in any surviving frescoes, and we frequently find portrayals of animals or men out of proportion. One of the best-known Etruscan frescoes is that of Tomb of the Lioness at Tarquinia. Gallery. Etruscan, balsamarium in the form of a deity with winged helmet. Etruscan, gem with Heracles at rest. Etruscan, breast ornament. Naked young man, small bronze, Hellenistic period. Femme Etrusque.